And top of the morning to you, or the afternoon, and the rest of the day to you, too, wherever you may be. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Thom Hartmann here with you. Greetings, my friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. Why do the Republicans have different standards for blue-collar versus white-collar workers? This is absolutely incredible. There's all this feigned outrage, all this storm and drying going on from the cons on the conservative side. For example, this from Fox News yesterday on their all-star panel.
All in favor of this heaping opprobrium on them. I deny them the bonuses if possible. I would be for an exemplary hanging or two. Have it in Times Square. Invite Madame Defarge. You borrow a guillotine from the French, we can have a party.
This is Charles Sauerkraut Hammer.
If that's what it takes to maintain popular support, let's do it. But it's not going to change anything economically.
And so that's from the right. I mean, you've got Grassley, Senator Charles Grassley, the Republican from Iowa.
For the American people, and take that deep bow and say, I'm sorry. And then either do one of two things, resign or go commit suicide.
So you got Charles Grassley saying that these guys should commit suicide. You've got Krauthammer saying that they should be executed or hung, as if the Republicans all along had been opposed to executives getting enormous, millions of dollars from companies that are being bailed out by the government. And the fact of the matter is, by the way, that this is selling. This stuff, this steaming warm stuff that the Republicans are shoveling at us through the media, and the media is just going along with it. Yeah, absolutely. Probably the only one who's going to expose it, or the ones will be Keith Olbermann and Jon Stewart. We'll see. But the Washington Post, today's Washington Post, Michael Shear and Paul Kane, the first paragraph. This is page 1 of today's Washington Post. President Obama's apparent inability to block executive bonuses at insurance giant AIG has dealt a sharp blow to his young administration and is threatening to derail both public and congressional support for his ambitious political agenda. So here we have all this. Everybody's upset because these guys at AIG are getting their bonuses. Everybody's all upset about that. Nobody is remembering the story from, for example, 2 weeks ago. The House Republican leader, this is from CNN. This is from March 8th, CNN. They're talking about John Boehner. The House Republican leader said Sunday he did not support giving General Motors any more federal funds until the company can show it will be able to survive in the long term and pay back the government. And as two of his GOP colleagues in the Senate said it was time for the automaker to declare bankruptcy, Senator John McCain agreed, telling Fox News Sunday that bankruptcy would be good for GM. Quote, this is McCain. Now, we're talking about blue-collar workers here. We're not talking about white-collar workers. We're not talking about millionaires. We're talking about people who make, anywhere from $15 to $25 or $30 an hour. This is John McCain. Quote, I think the best thing that could probably happen to General Motors, in my view, is that they go into Chapter 11, they reorganize, they renegotiate the union management contracts, and come out of it a stronger, better, leaner, and more competitive automotive industry. Yeah. But McCain, no. Do we want to do this with the bankers? Well, no, not at all. In fact, as Ryan Grimm, blogging over at the Huffington Post, this is back in February 6th, he's talking about how President Obama has proposed capping compensation for executives at banks that take taxpayer bailout money at $500,000. Remember this? He wanted to write it into the TARP legislation, write it into the law that if a bank gets money, they can't pay any of their executives more than $500,000 a year. Republicans hate the idea, a position that puts them uncomfortably on the side of people currently, unpopular. So here's some quotes. These are the Republicans who were saying back in February. This really speaks to the attention span of the American media and the American people. Republicans back in February. Mel Martinez, the Republican from Florida, quote, what the executives have done is troubling. But it's equally troubling to have the government tell shareholders how much they can pay the executives. Oh my God, says Senator Martinez, the Republican from Florida. We can't have the government telling corporations how much to pay their executives. Senator James Inhofe, the Republican from Oklahoma. He says, as I was listening to him make those statements, this is Obama making the statements about limiting executive compensation at $500,000 a year if a company, if the AIG, for example, takes government money. He says, as I was listening to him make those statements, I thought, is this still America? Do we really tell people how to run a business and who to pay and how much to pay? It's incredible. What are we going to do next, wondered Martinez. Tell a company if they get TARP money where their offices should be? That they should be renting maybe from an abandoned federal building? Senator Thom, the Republican from Oklahoma. He says, if we want such a good job of running the federal government, if we do such a good job of running the federal government, what business do we have telling them how to run the banks? In other words, he thinks that apparently the good senator from Oklahoma, the Republican Thom, thinks that the government does a lousy job. I don't know, maybe he's still using the Postal Service, maybe not. Maybe he still, wants the police and the fire department to protect his house. Maybe not, I don't know. He seems to think the government doesn't know how to do things. Kit Bond, the senator from Missouri, the Republican. He says, if Congress can run a financial institution that belies everything I've seen in this body, government does not do a good job running private institutions. Again, speaking in opposition to caps on executive compensation. So here we have 3 months ago, the Republicans saying, no way, Charlie, you cannot limit the amount of money that these guys make. Now, at the same time, they were saying, now, if we're going to give money to General Motors, who hires blue-collar workers to work on an assembly line, they damn well better go into bankruptcy so they can renegotiate those contracts. That was John McCain. He was just pounding on that thing. GM needs to renegotiate those union contracts. They are paying people too much. Remember the $70 an hour? You had these guys running all over the media saying, these GM workers are making $70 an hour. Well, none of them are actually making $70 an hour. But if you take all the previous people who were working on the assembly lines who are now drawing a pension, which, by the way, they paid into, and who are now getting health insurance in their retirement, which, by the way, they gave up pay for back in the day in order to get that as part of their retirement. These were all negotiated. If you take those payments to retired workers and you add that to what GM is paying current workers, and it's not just GM, by the way, it's all the auto companies. And it's not just the auto company. I mean, right across the board. But in any case, if you take all that pay and you add it all together and you divide it by the number of current employees, you come up with $70 an hour, per hour per person. But that's not what they're paying their labor. That's not even close. They're paying their labor, $15 to $30 an hour, or in that neighborhood, plus benefits. But here you've got the Republicans saying, "Oh no, we got to force them into bankruptcy." I mean, and here's where it gets even more bizarre. Back in the 90s, back in 1997, the Republicans, of course, by that point, as I recall, had control of the House and Senate. And Bill Clinton was just eagerly going along on doing away with welfare as we know it. Right? If somebody's going to get money from the government, then they damn well better put up with regular mandatory drug testing. They can't get more than 60 months worth of benefits in their entire lifetime. So if they fall in hard times several times in their life, after 60 months, sorry, Charlie, you're out. That's it. Some states, by the way, have shortened this. They must be trying to find employment. Unmarried minor parents have to live with a responsible adult or guardian. So if you're on welfare because you're 17 years old and you've got a baby and you're not married, you have to move in with your parents. They have to take and the paternity of children must be established in order to receive benefits. In order to receive benefits, you got to give blood. But the Republicans wanted to make sure that there were no such restrictions on money going to executives in companies getting bailouts from the federal government, including AIG. The Republicans wanted to make sure there were no such limits. Welfare? Oh, yeah. Let's nail their butts to the wall. Workers at the auto companies? Oh, yeah. Let's force the companies into bankruptcy so we can renegotiate the contracts. AIG? Oh, government can't tell companies what to pay their people.